The transport ship shook like a dying animal. Lisa Kane held tight to her seat as sparks flew from the control panel in front of her. The pilot was shouting something, but his words were lost in the screaming sound of tearing metal. "We're going." "Down!" Jake Miller yelled from across the small cargo hold. The Marine sergeant was already pulling on his emergency gear. "Get your suit on now." Lisa's hands shook as she reached for her survival suit. She was a scientist, not a soldier. She studied alien plants and soil samples, not crashes and emergencies. The ship tilted hard to the left, and she fell against the wall. Jake was beside her in seconds. His strong hands helped her into the thick survival suit. "Stay calm, Doc. We'll be okay." But Lisa could see the worry in his dark eyes. Through the small window, she saw the ice planet rushing up to meet them. Kepler 442c was supposed to be a safe supply run. She was only going to the research station to collect some samples. Now they were falling toward the frozen ground at terrible speed. The impact came like a giant hammer. Lisa felt her body thrown against the safety straps. Pain shot through her chest and side. The lights went out. The sound of breaking glass and twisted metal filled the air. Then everything went quiet. Lisa opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt badly. She could taste blood in her mouth. "Jake?" she called out weakly. "I'm here." His voice came from somewhere in the dark. She heard him moving around, pushing things aside. A light came on, Jake's emergency flashlight. The cargo hold was a mess. Boxes and equipment were scattered everywhere. The ceiling had a big crack running across it. Cold air was already coming. In through the broken parts of the ship, Jake crawled over to her. Blood ran down his forehead from a cut, but he was moving okay. "How bad are you hurt?" Lisa tried to sit up and gasped. Sharp pain filled her chest. "Something's wrong inside. It hurts to breathe." Jake's face became serious. He checked her pulse and looked into her eyes with his light. "You might have broken ribs. Maybe internal bleeding. We need to get you to a doctor." "The research station, ... Lisa said, "is 200 kilometers away." Jake looked at his broken radio. "And our beacon is dead. No one knows we crashed." Lisa felt fear growing in her stomach. 200 kilometers in this cold meant death. The temperature on Kepler 442c dropped to 80 degrees below zero at night. They had maybe 6 hours before the sun went down. Jake was already moving, checking their supplies. Most of the emergency kit was damaged, but he found some food packets, water, and a small heating unit. "Not much, but something." "The ship's hull is cracked," he said, pulling more gear from the wreckage. "It won't keep us warm when night comes. We need to find shelter." Lisa watched him work. Even hurt and trapped, Jake stayed calm. He was maybe 30 years old, with short brown hair and steady hands. She had seen him around the colony base, but never really talked to him. Marines and scientists didn't mix much. "There," Jake said, pointing to his scanner. "Some kind of structure about 2 kilometers north. Could be shelter." Lisa tried to stand and almost fell. The pain in her side was getting worse. "I don't think I can walk that far. Then I'll carry you." Before she could argue, Jake was packing their supplies into a backpack. He wrapped her in an emergency blanket and lifted her carefully. Lisa was surprised by how easily he picked her up. Marines were strong, but Jake was gentle too. They left the broken ship behind. The wind outside was like knives cutting through their suits. Snow blew in thick clouds that made it hard to see. Jake walked steadily forward, following his compass. Lisa could feel his body heat through the blanket. It was the only warm thing in this frozen world. "Why are you doing this?" she asked after a while. Her voice was weak. "Doing what?" "Risking your life for me. You could move faster alone." Jake didn't answer right away. He kept walking, breathing hard from carrying her weight. Finally, he said, "That's not how we do things. We, humans, we don't leave people behind." Lisa felt something howl in the distance. It sounded like a wolf. A different, colder, hungrier. Jake heard it too. He walked faster. The structure turned out to be a cave opening in some black rocks. Jake carried Lisa inside, out of the wind. The cave was dark and went deep into the mountain. But it was warmer than outside. Jake set Lisa down gently against the cave wall. He turned on the heating unit, and blessed warm air began to flow. Lisa closed her eyes and felt some of the cold leave her bones. "Get some rest," Jake said. "I'll keep watch." But Lisa could feel her body getting weaker. The pain in her chest was spreading. Her breathing was getting harder. The cold was winning, even with the heat. She looked at Jake sitting by the cave. Entrance, his rifle ready. He was watching the darkness outside, protecting her from whatever was out there. She wanted to tell him thank you, but the words wouldn't come. Lisa closed her eyes and felt herself drifting away. The cold was taking her, and she was too tired to fight it anymore. Jake watched Lisa's breathing get slower. Her skin was turning pale, and her lips looked blue, even in the warm air from their small heater. The heating unit was running low on power. Soon it would die, and the cold would take them both. He checked his watch. 4 hours until full darkness. The temperature would drop even more then. Lisa needed real help, not just a cave and a dying heater. Jake picked up his flashlight and walked deeper into the cave. Maybe there was something back there they could use, more shelter, or even another way out. The cave walls were strange. They were too smooth, too straight. This wasn't a natural cave. Someone had made this. 20 meters in, Jake found the first room. His light showed walls covered in symbols, strange writing that looked like it was carved by claws. The ceiling was high, and there were holes in the walls that might have been windows once. This was a building. An old building buried in the mountain. Jake went back to Lisa. She was unconscious now, her breathing very weak. He wrapped her in both their emergency blankets and carried her deeper into the ruins. The second room was bigger. Jake's light showed broken furniture made of some kind of dark metal. There were pictures on the walls, carved images of tall, thin creatures with long necks and clawed hands. They looked like reptiles that walked on 2 legs. In the center of the room was a large platform. When Jake stepped on it, lights came on, soft blue lights that didn't hurt his eyes. The platform was some kind of control system, and it was still working after all these years. Jake set Lisa down carefully on the platform. The blue light seemed to make her breathing a little easier, but she was still dying. He explored more rooms. Each one had the same strange furniture and reptile pictures. These creatures had lived here long ago, but where were they now? In the 5th room, Jake found his answer. A creature stood in the corner, perfectly still. It was tall like the pictures showed, with gray-green skin and yellow eyes. For a moment, Jake thought it was dead, like a statue. Then it moved. The creature turned its long head toward Jake. Its eyes were bright and intelligent. It made a sound like wind through dry leaves. Jake raised his rifle, but didn't shoot. The creature wasn't attacking. It was just looking at him. "Hello," Jake said, feeling stupid. "What do you say to an alien?" The creature tilted its head. It made more soft sounds, almost like it was trying to talk. Jake lowered his gun a little. "My friend is hurt. She's dying from the cold." The creature stepped forward slowly. It was even taller than Jake thought, maybe 7 feet. Its movements were careful, like it was very old. Jake backed toward the door, but the creature didn't follow. Instead, it pointed with one long finger toward the room where Lisa was. "You want to see her?" The creature nodded. Just like a human would, Jake led the alien back to Lisa. When it saw her lying on the platform, wrapped in blankets, it made a sound that might have been sadness. It knelt beside her and put one clawed hand near her face, not touching the clothes. It looked at Jake and pointed deeper into the ruins. It wanted him to follow. "I can't leave her," Jake said. The creature understood. It carefully lifted Lisa in its arms. She looked tiny against its chest, but it was gentle with her, like Jake had been. They went deeper into the mountain. The passages here were wider, with more of those blue lights. Jake saw more pictures on the walls. These showed the reptile people living in great cities, with tall buildings and flying machines. They had been advanced, maybe more than humans were now, but other pictures showed different creatures. These looked like they were made of light or energy. They had no solid bodies, just flowing shapes that seemed to move even in the carved stone. In the pictures, these energy beings were fighting the reptile people. The creature carrying Lisa made more sounds. It pointed to the energy beings in the pictures, then made a cutting motion across its throat. "They're your enemies," Jake said. Creature nodded again. They reached a huge room with a high ceiling. In the center was a massive machine made of the same dark metal. It was covered in symbols and had crystals growing out of it. Some of the crystals glowed with warm light. Creature set Lisa down next to the machine. It touched some of the symbols, and more lights came on. The whole machine began to hum softly. Jake felt warmth coming from the crystals. Real warmth, not just hot air. Lisa's breathing got a little stronger. "This is a heater," Jake said. "A big one." The creature made sounds that might have been agreement. It touched more symbols, and the warmth grew stronger. Lisa's color started to look better, but then the creature did something that scared Jake. It pointed to the surface, toward where they had come from. It made sharp, angry sounds and showed its teeth. Something was coming. Something the creature was afraid of. Jake checked his rifle and looked toward the entrance to the big room. "The energy beings? They're coming here?" The creature nodded. It pointed to Lisa, then to itself, then to Jake. It held up 3 fingers, then made that cutting motion again. It was saying they would all die. Jake looked at Lisa lying by the warm machine. Her breathing was better, but she was still unconscious, still hurt inside. They couldn't run, and they couldn't fight energy beings with just a rifle. But maybe they didn't have to. Jake looked at the machine, at all its symbols and crystals. "This isn't just a heater, is it? It's something else." The creature's yellow eyes met his. In them, Jake saw something he recognized. It was the same look he had seen in soldiers' eyes during battle. The look of someone who had lost everything, but was still willing to fight. The creature made one more sound, soft and sad. Then it pointed to the machine and made an explosion gesture with its hands. Jake understood. The machine was a weapon, and if they used it, they might all die anyway. Lisa stirred in her blankets. Her eyes opened slowly. "Jake," she whispered. "I'm here, Doc. We found help." Lisa looked at the creature kneeling beside her. She should have been scared, but instead she smiled weakly. "Hello," she said to it. The creature made gentle sounds. Back. Then all 3 of them heard it. A sound like wind, but wrong. Cold and hungry and getting closer. The energy beings had found them. The sound got louder. It was like wind blowing through ice, but there was something hungry in it. Something that wanted to eat them. Lisa tried to sit up. The warmth from the big machine had helped her, but she was still weak. What is that sound? The reptile creature made urgent noises. It pointed toward the entrance and moved its hands in a flowing motion, like water or smoke. "Energy beings," Jake said. "The things that destroyed this place?" Lisa looked at the carved pictures on the walls. She could see the story now. The reptile people had built this city. They had lived here in peace. Then the energy creatures came and took everything away. How many? She asked. The creature held up both hands, then both hands again, then again. Too many to count. Jake checked his rifle. This won't stop energy beings. They don't have bodies to shoot. The reptile creature went to the big machine. It touched. Symbols and new lights came on. A picture appeared in the air, above the machine. A map of the ruins. Red dots were moving through the passages toward them. They're coming from all directions, Lisa said. We're trapped. The creature made more sounds. It pointed to the machine, then to the ceiling, then made that explosion gesture again. It's a weapon, Jake said. Some kind of bomb that can destroy the whole mountain. Lisa understood. If we set it off, we kill the energy beings, but we die too. The creature nodded sadly. Jake looked at the map. The red dots were getting closer. In maybe 10 minutes, the energy beings would reach them. There has to be another way, he said. The creature made sounds that might have been no. It touched a different part of the machine. New pictures appeared, memories of the final battle. The reptile people had tried everything. Regular weapons didn't work. The energy beings just flowed around them and drained their life away. In the pictures, Jake could see reptile people falling as the energy creatures touched them. Their bodies turned white with frost. Their eyes went empty and cold. They steal heat, Lisa said. Body heat, machine heat, any kind of warmth. That's how they kill. The creature made confirming sounds. Jake walked to the entrance of the big room. He could feel cold air coming down the passages. The energy beings were getting close. We could try to run, he said. I can't run, Lisa said quietly. I'm too hurt, too weak. Then I'll carry you. Jake, no. You saw what happened to the reptile people. If those things touch you while you're carrying me, we both die. If you go alone, at least one of us lives. Jake turned to look at her. Lisa was sitting up against the war machine, wrapped in blankets. Her face was pale but determined. I'm not leaving you, he said. You have to. It's the smart thing to do. I don't care about smart. The creature had been listening to them. Now it made sounds at Jake. Urgent, questioning sounds. What's it saying? Lisa asked. Jake looked at the creature's yellow eyes. I think it's asking why I won't leave you. The creature pointed to Lisa, then to Jake, then made a pushing motion. It was saying the same thing Lisa had said. Leave her and save himself. That's not how humans work, Jake said to both of them. The creature tilted its long head. It made confused sounds. We don't abandon each other. Even when it's stupid. Even when it gets us killed. Lisa smiled weakly. Jake, please. I'm asking you to go. Let me die here, but you live. That's an order. You can't order me, Doc. You're not military. Then I'm begging you. The cold wind sound was getting very close now. Jake could see his breath in the air. The energy beings were almost here. He looked at the machine, at its glowing crystals and strange symbols. What if we don't have to choose? What do you mean? Jake pointed to the thermal generator. This thing makes heat, right? Lots of heat? The creature nodded. And the energy beings eat heat. They're attracted to it. Yes, but so what if we give them what they want? Jake was thinking fast now. The machine makes heat. We use that heat as bait. Lead them away from here. Away from you. Then you and ... He looked at the creature. What's your name? The creature made a sound like Keshville. You and Keshville can escape while they're chasing me. Lisa shook her head. That's suicide. They'll drain all your heat and kill you. Maybe. Or maybe I'm fast enough to stay ahead of them until you get away. Keshval made urgent sounds. It touched the machine, and showed them the map again. The red dots were almost at their room. "There's no time to argue," Jake said. He started, taking off his extra gear, keeping only his rifle and one emergency heater. "Keshval, can you carry Lisa?" The creature looked at Lisa, then nodded. "Wait," Lisa said. She reached into her pack and pulled out a small device. "Emergency beacon. If you can get to high ground, maybe you can call for help." Jake took the beacon. "If I can." "Jake," Lisa's voice was soft. "Why are you doing this?" He knelt beside her. "Because leaving people behind isn't who we are. Humans stick together. Even when it's crazy." The cold wind was in the room now. Frost was forming on the walls. Jake activated his emergency heater and turned it up full. This should get their attention. He could see them now, shapes like flowing water made of light. They moved down the passages toward the heat he was giving off. "Go," he said to Keshval. "Take her and go." Keshval carefully lifted Lisa in its arms. She looked back at Jake as they headed for a different passage. "Don't die, Marine," she called to him. Jake smiled. "Wasn't planning on it, Doc." He ran toward the energy beings, holding his heater high. They turned toward him like hungry animals. He could feel the cold coming off them, see his breath freezing in the air. "Come on then," he said, and ran into the darkness. Behind him, Keshval carried Lisa toward safety. The reptile had never understood why someone would risk their life for another person who wasn't family. But watching Jake run toward certain death to save a human female he barely knew, Keshval began to understand something new. Maybe that was what made humans dangerous. Not their weapons or their technology, but their willingness to die for each other, even for strangers, even when it made no sense at all. Jake ran through the dark passages with the energy beings flowing behind him like cold smoke. His emergency heater was like a bright flame to them. They followed the heat, always getting closer. The passages twisted and turned through the mountain. Jake's flashlight showed him the way, but barely. He could feel the cold getting stronger behind him. When he looked back, he saw shapes of light flowing along the walls and ceiling. His breath came out in white puffs. The heater was keeping him warm, but it was also calling more of them. Every few minutes, Jake saw new energy beings joining the hunt. They came from side passages and hidden rooms. Soon there were dozens of them. Jake's plan had worked too well. He wanted to draw them away from Lisa and Keshval, but now he had woken up the whole nest. How many of these things were sleeping in the mountain? He ran harder, trying to stay ahead of the cold that followed him. Meanwhile, Keshval carried Lisa through different passages. The reptile creature moved quickly on its long legs, but it was careful not to hurt her. Lisa could feel herself getting stronger as they moved away from the energy beings. "Put me down," she said. "I can walk now." Keshval made questioning sounds. "I'm okay. The machine helped me. And you'll move faster if you're not carrying me." Keshval set her down gently. Lisa tested her legs. The pain in her chest was still there, but not as bad. She could walk. They moved together through the ruins. Lisa looked at the carved pictures on the walls as they passed. She was starting to understand the story they told. Your people didn't all die, did they? She said to Keshval. Some of you hid, went to sleep until it was safe. Keshval made soft sounds that meant yes. How long have you been asleep? Keshval held up fingers, tried to show her a number, but gave up. Too long to count easily. Lisa thought about Jake, running through the dark with those things chasing him. We have to help him. Keshval made worried sounds. It pointed back the way they had come, and made that cutting motion across its throat. I know it's dangerous. But he saved us. Humans don't abandon each other, remember? Keshval looked at her with those big yellow eyes. It was thinking about what Jake had done. Why a human would risk his life for strangers. Lisa pulled out her scanner. Can you show me how that big machine works? The one that makes heat? HFY made confused sounds. Jake thinks he's leading them to his death. But what if we could turn the machine into something else? Not a bomb, but a trap. HFY thought about this. It made sounds that might have been, maybe. They found a place where they could look down into the big room with the machine. Lisa studied it with her scanner while HFY explained what the symbols meant. It's not just a heater, Lisa said. It's a power source. It takes energy from the planet's core and turns it into heat and light. HFY made agreeing sounds. So if we reverse it, instead of making heat, it could take heat away. Make things cold. HFY made excited sounds. It was starting to understand. The energy beings need heat. If we could make a cold zone really cold, it might stop them. But first they had to find Jake. Jake was getting tired. He had been running for almost an hour, and the energy beings were getting closer. His heater was running out of power. Soon it would die, and then they would catch him. The passages had led him deep into the mountain. Here the walls were different, smoother and covered with more carvings. These pictures showed the energy beings differently. Not as enemies, but as refugees. Jake stopped running for a moment to look at the pictures. His light showed energy beings that looked sad and lost. In the carvings, they were floating in empty space between stars, searching for something. Behind him, the cold was getting closer. Jake understood something suddenly. The energy beings weren't evil. They were hungry. They needed heat to live, but their own world was gone. They were stealing warmth because they were dying without it. That didn't make them less dangerous, but it made them less like monsters. Jake's heater finally died. The warm air stopped flowing. In the sudden quiet, he could hear the energy beings slowing down. They were confused without the heat to follow. Jake turned off his flashlight and stood very still in the dark. Maybe if he didn't make any heat, they would lose him. But his body was warm. He was breathing. His heart was beating. All of that made heat. The energy beings found him. Jake felt the cold touch his back. It was like ice water flowing over his skin. His body heat started draining away. He fell to his knees as the warmth left his arms and legs. This was how he was going to die. Frozen in a dark tunnel under an alien mountain. Then he heard Lisa's voice echoing through the passages. Jake, can you hear me? The energy beings heard her too. They turned toward the sound of her voice, toward the warmth of a living human. No, Jake whispered. Don't come here. Run. But Lisa kept calling. Jake, we found a way. Come back to the big room. Jake tried to stand up. The energy beings had taken so much of his heat that his muscles barely worked. But Lisa was in danger. He had to warn her. He managed to get to his feet. The energy beings were flowing toward Lisa's voice, leaving him behind. They wanted the new source of heat. Jake followed them, stumbling in the dark. He had to reach Lisa before they did. In the big room, Lisa and HFY were working on the machine. They had changed some of the symbols, rewired some of the crystals. Now, instead of glowing warm, the crystals were turning blue-white. Hurry, Lisa said. I can hear them coming. HFY touched the final symbol. The machine's hum changed to a higher pitch. Jake stumbled into the room just as the energy beings arrived. They flowed in like a cold river, heading straight for Lisa and HFY. Now! Lisa shouted. Kes single quotes Val slammed its hand down on the machines. Control. The crystals exploded with cold blue light. The temperature in the room dropped like a stone. Frost formed on the walls. The air itself seemed to freeze. The energy beings stopped. For the first time since Jake had met them, they looked afraid. Lisa smiled. Turns out they don't like the cold any more than we do. The cold blue light filled the room like winter itself. The energy beings pulled back from the machine, their flowing forms shivering and dim. For the first time, they looked weak. Jake collapsed near the entrance. His body was so cold he could barely move. Lisa ran to him, pulling off her emergency blanket to wrap around his shoulders. "I'm okay," he whispered, but his lips were blue. "No, you're not." Lisa looked at his pale skin, his shaking hands. The energy beings had drained too much of his heat. "Keshval, can you warm up the machine again?" Keshval made worried sounds. It pointed to the energy beings, who were gathering at the edges of the room. If they brought back the heat, the creatures would attack again. But Jake was dying from the cold. Lisa looked at the energy beings. They weren't attacking now. They were huddled together like scared animals. The cold from the machine was hurting them too. "They're just trying to survive," she said quietly. "Just like us." Jake tried to sit up. "The pictures in the tunnels, they showed the energy beings as refugees. They lost their home." Lisa studied the creatures with new eyes. They weren't monsters. They were desperate beings far from home, stealing heat because they needed it to live. One of the energy beings moved closer. It was bigger than the others, maybe older. It flowed carefully toward them, stopping when the cold got too strong. Lisa stood up slowly. "You understand us, don't you?" The large energy being pulsed with dim light. It made sounds, like wind through crystal. Keshval made surprised noises. It knew that sound. "What is it saying?" Lisa asked. Keshval pointed to itself, then to the energy being, then made talking motions with its hands. "You can communicate with them?" Keshval nodded. It made sounds back to the energy being. Not words, but tones and rhythms that meant something. Conversation went on for several minutes. Jake watched from his blanket, still shivering but getting warmer. Lisa knelt beside him, sharing her body heat. Finally, Keshval turned back to them. It made explaining sounds and gestures. "They're refugees," Lisa said, understanding. "Their dimension is dying. They came here looking for energy to survive." Keshval made agreeing sounds, then sad ones. "But they can't control how much heat they take. When they touch warm things, they drain all the energy. They kill by accident." Jake looked at the energy beings clustered at the edge of the room. "That's why they're afraid of the cold machine. It's the opposite of what they need." The large energy being pulsed again. It flowed a little closer, staying just outside the cold field. "It's trying to say something," Lisa said. Keshval listened, then made sounds back. The conversation continued. "What if," Jake said slowly, "we didn't have to choose between freezing them or letting them kill us?" Lisa looked at him. "What do you mean?" Jake struggled to his feet, still wrapped in the blanket. "The machine can make heat or cold, right? What if it could do both at the same time?" Lisa thought about this. "Separate zones. Warm areas for the energy beings. Cool areas for us. And Keshval's people could come out of hiding. 3 species sharing one world." Keshval made excited sounds. It went to the machine and touched different symbols, showing them how it could be modified. The large energy being pulsed brighter. It was listening to everything. But would they agree to it? Lisa asked, "No more taking heat from living things?" Keshval asked the energy being directly. The creature's response was long and complex. "I think it's saying yes," Lisa said. "But they need a guarantee, steady heat they can count on." Jake looked at the machine with its glowing crystals. "This thing draws power from the planet's core. There's enough energy here to keep everyone warm." Lisa was already working on the machine, changing symbols and rerouting crystals. "If we set up thermal zones throughout the ruins, everyone could have the temperature they need." The energy being came closer, staying just at the edge of the cold field. It made sounds to Keshval. It wants to know why we would help them, Lisa translated. After they hunted us. Jake thought about this. Because leaving people behind isn't what humans do. Even if those people aren't human. The energy being pulsed with what might have been surprise. Jake continued. You're refugees. You're scared and hungry and far from home. We've been there too. Humans understand what that feels like. Lisa made the final adjustments to the machine. Try it now, Keshval. The reptile creature activated the new settings. The blue cold light faded from half the crystals. Those began glowing with warm yellow light instead. The room now had warm zones and cool zones. The energy beings flowed toward the warm areas, but carefully. They didn't drain all the heat at once. They took only what they needed. Jake walked into one of the cool zones and felt his strength returning. The temperature was perfect for humans. It works, Lisa said, smiling. Keshval made happy sounds. It was thinking about its people waking up from their long sleep, finally able to come home. The large energy being pulsed in a rhythm that sounded like gratitude. It spoke to Keshval for a long time. What's it saying now? Jake asked. Keshval made explaining sounds and gestures. I think it's offering an alliance, Lisa said. The energy beings have technology we don't understand. They want to share it. Jake looked around the room. 3 different species, working together instead of fighting. Think it will last? Maybe. Lisa said, humans are good at building bridges between different groups. We've had practice. Over the next few hours, they worked together to set up more thermal zones throughout the ruins. The energy beings showed them technology that could create heat from starlight. Keshval taught them how to wake up more of its people safely. Jake used Lisa's emergency beacon to finally call for help. When the rescue ships arrived 2 days later, they found something unprecedented. A joint colony with 3 species working together. Humans, reptiles, and energy beings sharing resources and knowledge. The rescue team leader, Captain Davis, looked around in amazement. How did you manage this? Jake was sitting in a warm zone, finally fully recovered from his ordeal. Lisa was nearby, studying energy being technology with the help of several awakened reptiles. We realized something, Jake said. When you're cold and far from home, it doesn't matter what species you are. Everyone needs warmth. Everyone needs help sometimes. Lisa looked up from her work. And when you share warmth, instead of hoarding, there's always enough to go around. Captain Davis shook his head. The politicians back home are going to have a hard time understanding this. Then we'll teach them, Jake said. Same way we learned, by working together. 6 months later, the joint colony had grown into a small city. Humans brought engineering skills. The reptiles provided knowledge of the planet and its resources. The energy beings shared technology that seemed like magic. Ships came from Earth, carrying diplomats and scientists. They wanted to study this new kind of cooperation. Most had never seen 3 different species living together in peace. Jake had been promoted to colony administrator. He spent his days helping solve problems between the different groups. There were still disagreements sometimes, but they worked. Through them, Lisa ran the research center where all 3 species shared their knowledge. She had learned to speak some of the reptile language and could even communicate with the energy beings through light patterns. Keshval had become the leader of its people as they woke up from their long sleep. It often visited the human sections of the city, curious about their customs. One evening, Jake and Lisa stood on the observation deck looking out over their city. Warm zones glowed yellow in some areas. Cool zones shimmered blue in others. Energy beings flowed between the buildings, like living auroras. Reptiles worked alongside humans in the gardens and workshops. Remember when you told me to leave you behind in that cave? Jake asked. Lisa smiled. That seems like a long time ago. You said it was the smart thing to do. It was the smart thing. Leaving me would have saved your life. Jake watched an energy being help a human child who had fallen down. The creature carefully warmed the child's scraped knee without taking too much heat. Maybe smart isn't always right, he said. What do you mean? Smart would have been leaving you to die. Smart would have been fighting the energy beings until we killed each other. Smart would have been 3 species staying separate and afraid. Lisa nodded. But humans don't always do the smart thing. No, sometimes we do the warm thing instead. A message came through on Jake's radio. Another ship had arrived from Earth. This one carrying families who wanted to join the colony. The city was growing every month. They're calling it the Warmth Accords, Lisa said, reading from her tablet. The first treaty signed between humans and 2 alien species. Good name. Jake said. Below them, the city lights twinkled in the alien darkness. 3 species that should have been enemies had become something new together. Not just allies, but friends. It had started with one man refusing to leave one woman behind in the cold. That simple human stubbornness had changed everything. Jake felt Lisa take his hand. Her fingers were warm against his skin. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For not being smart. For choosing warmth instead. Jake squeezed her hand. That's just how humans are. We don't leave each other behind, even when it's crazy. Especially when it's crazy. In the distance, HFY was teaching a group of human children how to read the old reptile writings. Energy beings danced in patterns that made the children laugh with delight. The coldest night had become the warmest dawn. And it all started because one human refused to let another human die alone. Sometimes, the best thing about being human wasn't being smart or strong or brave. Sometimes it was just being willing to share your warmth with anyone who needed it. No matter what they looked like or where they came from. In the end, warmth shared was warmth multiplied. And there was always enough to go around.